If you're called a peach at a hotel, it might be time to speak with the manager. And if you hear the code NORA in a store, you should head for the exit right away. From hospitals to Walmart to Disneyland and cruise ships, the world is packed with secret codes you might not notice unless they're meant for you. I mean, many professions have their own unique lingo that can leave outsiders scratching their heads, but we're here to change that. Stick around as we decode those fascinating hidden messages. Late one evening in a hospital, a resident comes up to another one saying he is totally fried after admitting 3 walkers to the floor and checking on 2 Discopias who keep yanking on their food snorkel. Wait, what? If that doesn't sound like English to you, don't worry. You won't find the true meaning of these words in the dictionary either. That's because doctors have their own special language to share complex info and talk about unpleasant situations without anyone else catching on. So, let me translate those terms. Walker is used for elderly patients who are often bedridden. Discopias refer to people who have trouble managing their so doctors use it to simply imply that a person needs to be admitted to the hospital even if there are no specific urgent health problems. And food snorkel? That's just a funny way of calling a feeding tube. If you think these terms are like a new trend or something that only students or trainees do, think again. Medical professionals have been using their own jargon since the early to mid-20th century. In 1969, for example, a letter sent to a medical journal totally criticized the term FLK, which means funny-looking kid. One term that is frequently used in hospitals is code brown, which means the doctors are dealing with, number 2 incontinence. But in Australia, code brown means something totally different. It's an emergency alert for the worst-case scenarios. From massive transport accidents to natural disasters like tsunamis or cyclones. So when this code goes off, hospitals quickly shift workers to where they're needed most to make sure critical patients get top priority. The code brown term is also used in Walmart stores across the US, but its meaning is slightly different. So here's my suggestion. If you hear it while picking up stuff for your dinner, you should exit the store immediately. Code brown means something dangerous or sketchy is going on inside. But that's not the only secret message to listen for. One Walmart worker spilled the beans online, saying they have at least 8 different color codes to keep us customers in the dark. Take code Adam, for example. That's Walmart talk for a lost kid wandering around. If there's a big storm coming up or any other weather surprises, you might hear them using the code black. And if you catch a worker saying code orange, there's some kind of a chemical mess to steer clear of. But not all the codes at Walmart mean something bad is going down. Code Spark just means they need more people at the registers, and Code C is used when they need customer service help. There's also a funny rumor about a supposed secret language of supermarket dating, and it's not just at Walmart's, okay? These codes aren't spoken, since they're more about how you manage your groceries. But they are still a fun way for shoppers to show they are single and ready to mingle. For example, if you pick up a bunch of bananas and stick them in your cart upright with the curves facing up, it means you're single and looking for love. And if you want to show interest in a guy, you should just sneak a peach into his cart. Fingers crossed he also knows about this secret code. Or else, you'll just look like a clumsy person tossing fruit into strangers' carts. Stores and malls also have their own secret language. Some shops use the code word NORA when employees are facing some serious trouble. For example, if someone enters a store in a terrible mood and starts causing a scene by throwing everything around, an employee might call security and say, "Hi Nora, I've got a customer issue." Here, Nora sounds like a manager's name, right? But it's actually an acronym for Need Officer Right Away. So it's a really clever way to ask for help without escalating the situation. Now, if Primark is your favorite place to freshen up your wardrobe, you should know that a former employee spilled the beans on some store secrets. For instance, if you hear an announcement about someone called Mr. Brown needing to come to the checkout, it probably means that a client is in trouble and staff just don't want to alert customers that security is on the way. And get this, the least glamorous news of all is when you hear a code 2 over the store intercom. According to the Inside Scoop, it's bad news for the cleaners because it means someone used Primark's floor as their personal toilet. Yep, you heard that right. Also, if you hear a bell ringing in the store, pay attention to how many times it happens. 2 rings usually mean a worker needs a supervisor or manager. 3 rings serve as an emergency alert, meaning something serious and potentially dangerous is going on. So if you hear them, you might want to skip the checkout and come back later before you accidentally end up in a real-life drama. You shouldn't trust every hotel employee. Sure, they are polite, welcoming, and chat with you like you're their long-lost buddy, but behind your back, they might call you a peach. That's right. Peach means a guest who is a real pain to deal with. A skipper is a person who books a room but never actually shows up. And I hope you never get to be labeled as a UG, which stands for unsatisfied guest. If you happen to overhear the lobby staff using the word ghost, don't freak out. It doesn't mean the hotel is haunted like in The Shining. They're just talking about someone who suddenly shows up claiming they have a reservation without actually making one. So yep, hotel staff have their own secret lingo to talk about guests without getting busted. But they also use safe words for hotel issues they don't want you to know about. For instance, code B stands for bugs. They could be talking about roaches, ants, or even the dreaded bed bugs. So if you hear this code, it's probably a good idea to get out of bed and start checking for critters. If you are at Disneyland, the behind-the-scenes lingo is just as fascinating as the rides. Ever heard of 101? Nope, it's not a class. When something is 101, it means it's broken or closed. So if your favorite ride is down, don't worry, it's not just your bad luck, it's officially 101. But if you're having fun on Space Mountain and suddenly everything comes to a screeching halt, just like slamming on the brakes because a squirrel ran in front of your car, that's called an e-stop, short for emergency stop. Now, the gross stuff. Code V means someone has just tossed their churros and the mess needs to be cleaned up ASAP. And then there's also Code H. Oh boy, you really don't want to hear this one. It means someone has left a, shall we say, less than magical surprise somewhere in the park. Yep, a guest did a number 2 away from the bathrooms. Yikes! Even in the happiest place on earth, things can get messy. That's why employees have secret codes for personal stuff too, like ROSS, which stands for Release of Service. It's basically a VIP pass to head home early when a staff member is feeling too sick to keep up with the magic with Mickey. So, you're off on a cruise, huh? Sweet! But then you hear someone say that a mamagayo got a banana. Should you be worried? Nah, but someone else might be. That's because a mamagayo is cruise ship slang for a crew member who is sneaking around or chilling in their cabin when they're supposed to be working. And a banana is definitely not about someone craving a fruit smoothie. If a crew member messes up and gets a lecture from their boss, they say they got a banana. Thankfully, over the past few years, some cruise ship employees have spilled the beans on all the secret code words the crew uses. This means you get to play undercover agent on your next vacation at sea. So, if an employee looks like they've had a rough day, you now know they're probably kaput, which means totally wiped out. The crew has secret codes for emergency too. Alpha means there's a medical problem happening somewhere, and Bravo stands for a fire on board. But what you really need to watch out for are terms like Echo and Oscar. Echo is used when the ship is starting to drift, and Oscar means someone has gone overboard. If you hear a restaurant staff member saying 86, just hope they're not talking about your favorite dish. This number is actually their secret code for running out of something, meaning the item has to be crossed off the menu temporarily. For instance, if an Italian restaurant runs out of gnocchi, you will probably hear them say 86 the gnocchi. The letters BOH stand for back of house. That's where all the behind-the-scenes magic happens. Dishwashers, prep cooks, and the big boss chef hang out there. But it also means the actual back part of the restaurant, like the storage room. FOH, on the other hand, is front of house, where the customers are. And FOH employees normally means they're talking about waiters and hosts. You don't need to freak out if you hear the word fire coming from the kitchen. It is just chef speak for time to cook that dish. If they shout hands, it means they urgently need any available staff to get hot food to the tables. And make hungry guests happier, of course. Now, let's crack a code that'll make you thank me the next time you watch The Bear. Do you know how they keep saying all day in those intense kitchen scenes? It's not some kind of weird cooking mantra, it's just how the staff keep track of orders. I mean, instead of listing every single order for a dish, they just add them up and say all day to mean all together. And they use it at the end of sentences, sort of like saying over on a walkie-talkie. If something dangerous happens inside a restaurant, the staff can count on the police. By the way, they also have their own set of secret codes and jargon. For example, player refers to a suspect, while a rabbit is someone who flees from the police or the act of fleeing itself. The term skate means to escape from trouble. For instance, if a witness doesn't show up for trial, someone might skate from their charges. But most police codes are numeric and transmitted over the radio. For instance, 1010 means that an officer is off duty. Then, 1065 refers to a missing person. And let's just hope that the code 1000 is never said. Like, ever. Unfortunately, that means that an airplane has just crashed. Oh boy. Sorry to disappoint you, but when flight attendants mention Tom Cruise on a plane, it doesn't mean the Mission Impossible star will be sitting next to you. This is actually a not-so-glamorous code airlines normally use. It helps the cabin crew identify which of the identical pots on the trolley contains coffee and which contains tea. So they might say, tea, Tom, is in the pot on the left of the cart. Coffee, Cruise, is in the pot on the right. On the other hand, hearing Jim Wilson on a plane isn't a good sign, and the flight crew is definitely not calling out a passenger's name. Jim Wilson is a secret code for discussing a deceased person without drawing attention. Whether we like it or not, planes can carry people who've passed away along with living passengers, but not exactly sitting next to them, of course. Codes like these help the crew maintain calm and order, because we all know that panicking at 35,000 feet is not ideal. Some codes are pretty simple. I mean, air pocket means turbulence, flight deck is the same as cockpit, and equipment refers to the airplane itself. Then there are the less pleasant codes, like blue juice, which means there's toilet water on the plane. How fun! Speaking of fun, there's a little game that flight attendants play to keep things lively. It's called Find the Bob, and basically it's their way of giving a nod to the most attractive passenger on the plane. So, they call the best-looking person Bob for the day. Now, if they're struggling to spot a Bob because a passenger is sleeping or their face is hidden, they use the phrase cheerio instead. So, when this sleepy passenger is getting off the plane, the crew might say cheerio to each other, signaling that they were fancying that passenger. Programming often feels like trying to crack a secret code for many people. On top of that, with all the technical jargon and endless lines of code, IT professionals sometimes add their own inside jokes to the mix, making the communication even more confusing. But not anymore. You see, sometimes they say EEOC. This term stands for Equipment Exceeds Operator Capabilities. Translation: the gear is smarter than the user. Ouch, right? Next is ESTO, which means Equipment Smarter Than Operator. Yeah, it's basically the same thing, meaning that the user's computer is playing chess while they're still figuring out checkers. IT folks can be brutal, but hey, they deal with a lot. So next time your screen freezes or your printer goes rogue, it might just be a classic case of PEBKAC. This code means problem exists between keyboard and chair. Spoiler alert, that's probably you, me, and basically everyone else in the world who isn't a tech wizard. So, if you're banging your head over tech issues and hear the code PEBKAC, it means you are officially the problem. But that's actually good news. It means your computer can be saved after all. Another community that can be a bit harsh is the world of card game pros. So, you're just starting to play poker. Well, first things first, you have to learn some easy codes. Bluff. That's when you act like you've got a winning hand, but you're really holding a pair of twos. Check. That's poker's way of saying you're good with your hand and you want to see what comes next. And the flop. That's when 3 cards are dealt out on the table and everyone either cheers or lets out a little sigh. But poker pros like to keep some things secret, and they've got some advanced lingo they don't want everyone to know. For example, you might hear someone call another player a fish. A fish is a weak player, usually the one losing chips faster than a kid in a candy store. Then there's the donkey, a player making such bad decisions that you wonder if they're playing poker or just tossing chips around without a clue. They might also call you a whale. No, it's not about Moby Dick, but a player making huge, reckless bets like they've got money to burn. Trust me, Next time you're at a poker table, dropping these terms will make you look like a high-stakes pro instead of someone who just learned how to shuffle.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.